Welcome to the Futurist Society podcast, where we delve into the latest advancements in technology, science, and culture. From discussions on the latest breakthroughs in AI, biotechnology, and space exploration, the Futurist Society is your window into all of the awesomeness that the future holds. Get ready to be informed and inspired as we consider the positive impact of emerging technologies on humanity. Without further ado, welcome your host, Dr. Awesome.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Futurist Society. We have today Kevin Dewalt, who is the CEO and founder of Prolego, which is a company that is taking the biggest businesses and helping them integrate AI into their workflow. I'm really glad to have you, Kevin. AI is such a big buzzword right now. It's something that we're all talking about, and you have kind of the inside scoop on how this is going to affect our interaction with a lot of these companies that we see on a daily basis. So just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got here, and what you think that AI is going to bring to the businesses that you're offering.
Sure. Well, first, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's really an honor to be associated with the kind of the quality of the guests you have on the show. So let me just give you let me provide a little about my background and my perspective, because I think that will help the guests understand where I come from. So I've been doing this kind of work for about 30 years now. I made my first neural network in the early 1990s as a grad student at Stanford when I was trying to figure out what classes should I take. And I saw this neural network. I said, wow, this sounds amazing. AI thinks like a computer. I can build something that's going to predict the stock market. And of course, I quickly realized that, the 5 neuron network that I built in MATLAB was slow and not very useful. But one way or another, for the past 30 years, I've been involved in software innovation as a founder, venture capitalist, investor, big companies, small companies, government. I've kind of done the gambit. 7 years ago, I started Prolego because I felt like the time was finally arrived where the technology was good enough to actually build a business and start solving real problems. So that's what we do. So the perspective I bring is somebody who's out there working with the biggest companies, helping to identify their problems, think about their strategies, and what they can do as a business to leverage this technology to make their businesses operate more efficiently. So that's kind of the perspective I bring as a Prolego and what I do. So I think I've lost the thread of your question now. So maybe you could repeat it for me after I give it back.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like everybody knows what artificial intelligence is from a very superficial standpoint. Mm-hmm. They know the word, they know that it's some sort of brain in a computer. Right. But what I'm most interested in is, what is the future going to look like when we have artificial intelligence built into a company that you're working with? Yep. And we'll get a little bit further into some of the topics that I think are really cool and really interesting. But I want to know from, like, let's say a company that you've worked with in the past, how have you brought artificial intelligence into their business, and how has it really changed them for the better? Great.
Excellent question. Everyone's been hearing about AI for, decades, but at least the last 7 or 8 years. Right. And when we talk to business leaders in the public, there's a lot, sometimes we get the reaction like, I've been hearing about this stuff, but what's really different? What's really happening now? Until a year ago, the challenge of actually building and solving real problems with AI came down to basically money. And that to use what I'm going to call narrow AI, which is everything before the ChatGPT came out and some of these generative AI technologies, it was just expensive and hard. And so to try and solve a business problem with the technology, you had to get data curated, buy infrastructure, get expertise, and there was just a lot you had to do. And as a result, there were not a lot of profitable business cases at most companies. You had to be a Google, Apple, Netflix, a tech company with the data and the scale to really leverage this technology. Everything changed a year ago with the arrival of ChatGPT and these generative models. The big shift from industry and for companies is that AI is now becoming a general purpose technology. So if the previous generations of AI were like building a laptop from scratch, the current the current AI technology is like going to Best Buy and buying a laptop and being able to use it for whatever you want. And so that means there are many, many ways that we can deploy this technology across all different types of products and services for much lower cost. So a project that and the nature of the technology is going to usher in a change in how we build software. For the past 50 years, if you want to build a software to solve a business problem, you have to explicitly write rules and tell the computer exactly what you want to do. And if any of your audience has ever done any programming, they'll be familiar with like typical programming languages. We're entering a new area on software engineering where instead of telling the computer exactly what to do, programmers will be able to take AI technology and give it direction and have it go figure out problems. The implication of this is that we are going to have much, much more software because what used to take a team of 20 people, 20 months will be done by a team of 2 people in 2 weeks. So we're going to introduce software at scale everywhere very quickly. So when we look at the future, that's the lens I look through it. So I can't try to predict exactly what's going to happen. Will it be good or bad? I don't have a crystal ball better than anybody else does. When like it implicates jobs, people go ahead.
Yeah, but for the layperson, when they interact with artificial intelligence, for like a company that you work with, like for example, when I think of artificial intelligence, I think about the Google Assistant software. I think that's something that's going to change all of our lives for the better. Right. It would be so great if I could just have my assistant just get me a reservation at a restaurant without me having to go through Resi.
Exactly.
Or, any of these other booking a reservation, look at the exact time. I have to manage my calendar. I have to manage my wife's calendar. I have to make sure that my kids don't have anything, and the idea of having somebody do that for you is exactly what the future is that I want. So for the layperson, for some of the businesses you work with, you can give an example of like how that artificial intelligence work will translate to a better experience for them.
Yeah, let's use your example because that's a good one. So the reason that you don't have an automated solution to solve that like painful, simple problem like travel planning, which is actually the example I use in my past book of like how tedious it is, but scheduling and planning this kind of stuff is still tedious and hard. And everybody knows it's a pain and companies have been trying to solve it for decades, but no one's figured it out. And it's because when you actually try to tell a computer how to do this, it's really hard because computers don't generalize well when you tell them exactly what to do. And there are too many edge cases. You want to find the time when you're available and someone else is available and you want to go to this restaurant and then not that one at this time of day. And there's all these exceptions and boundary conditions. Traditional programming is not very good at that. With these new AI technologies, they can handle general direction and go out and figure out problems by going out and gathering up the data they need to do it. So from a software engineer's perspective, I don't have to actually tell the computer how to figure out everything to coordinate schedules. I can tell a model says, hey, go look at my schedule, go look at my wife's schedule, and go check out, do a Google search and find out restaurants in this area that are available and find me a good time and come back with 3 suggestions. And it can do that. It can do that today. Like that's what's already here.
So just give me an example of does Google offer that, or is that something that
we will find out in the next couple of weeks because they have a release. They are getting ready to roll out a release they call Gemini. Because Google is effectively scared to death of OpenAI and Microsoft. The company went on, pulled the fire alarm and went on all alert and combined a lot of the best technologies they had. They swept away the bureaucracy. They brought Larry Page back in. I believe it was not Sergey. I believe it was Larry Page they brought in to drive it. And now he's personally driving the release of their next models. And they're training it on 5 times of the computing power that OpenAI used. So
is it going to become a commodity similar to other industries where you have large companies that are kind of, the source for AI, or is it going to be more democratized, where a smaller company, like a handful of programmers, could offer the same services, but not maybe not at the same scale? How is it going to be? How is the future of the business of AI going to look like? Is it going to be like top heavy, or is it going to be more distributed?
Distributed. It's bottom heavy. It means that the two-person engineering company, the two-person startup, can do things at Google scale. It's hard for me to see how a lot of legacy companies are going to survive. Because if I'll give an example, like let's pick a software that you're like Salesforce. I'm sure your audience heard of the company Salesforce. It's a customer relationships management software that companies can just go out and buy and connect their data to and start using it to help their sales and marketing more effectively.
Right.
It's essentially a large rules-based application that's been built over decades, and so to get it up and running in your company is hard. It's easy to give them your credit card and start, but to give them your data and to customize it and get it working with and get your salespeople using it is like, it's difficult and expensive. We're going to see a generation of smaller companies that can offer most of the same solution at a fraction of the cost, where you just connect the AI to your data. Hey, connect your AI data and it'll start helping you with your sales. That's what's coming.
That's awesome.
It's going to be democratized. The great analogy I look is like, the iPhone, right? Elon Musk can't buy a better iPhone than I can, right?
Yeah.
So that's where we're headed. It is commodity. Intelligence will become a commodity.
Interesting.
We can talk about some optimistic things for society whenever you're ready. If that happens.
No, I would love to, because that's what I'm all about. I love looking at the future in an optimistic light, because like, honestly, I can't wait until I have the ability for the AI to do a lot of like the scut work that I'm just not interested in doing. Like, there's just so many admin tasks that are required to be an adult in 2023 that I just feel like that is not what human beings are created for. We're not like responding to my jury duty letter, or, like doing like stuff like that. Like, let the computer handle it. Like, what are you seeing down the pipeline that you're most optimistic about?
So let's take that example. So you are right that there are a lot of the tedious day-to-day stuff, and it's easy to look around you and say, wow, when intelligence is democratized, I don't have to do that. I don't have to do that. I don't have to do that. But that's not the biggest social impact. What I see coming is the ability to provide that kind of intelligence to everyone. I have members in my family, as everybody does, who, as middle-aged adults, struggle to just do life, make decisions, think critically, make good choices. And if you look at, what social scientists have been talking about this for years, but if you can invest in people's childhood education and increase their competency by, single digit percentages, there's massive social implications, right? You make somebody 5% smarter in preschool, and suddenly it returns tens of millions of dollars to the economy. It's very clear. But so now imagine we can instantly provide these people with a tool, which is going to be free on their freaking phone, that helps them make better choices, like with basic life stuff. We are looking at an instant lift in the productivity across. I mean, I have family members who, how do I get to the airport? Right. I mean, or especially when you look at people who maybe, English is not their first language, navigating the world, when they have a lapel pin that's listening, that's helping translate and tell them what to say and telling them, oh yeah, that's what I need to do. The social impacts are massive. And suddenly the gap between what is a frustration for you and I and what is a survival life skill for everybody else, that's going to go up. And that's an exciting future.
All of those things that you talked about, I think, are just getting me so excited to see come down the pipe. Just universal translation alone is going to break down so many barriers, you know? Just the idea to talk to anybody without any of this stuff in the way, I think is going to be really, really significant for us as a species. And you know, I think that the idea of, you know, human beings being optimized is something that I really also really appreciate.
Exactly.
Like, especially with like all the health data, you know,
Unbelievable.
me being
Yes.
in the medical field, the wearing an Apple Watch and seeing minute to minute what my values are for X, Y, and Z, I think has really not been explored to the level that it should be. I mean, everybody could have some sort of AI health coach making sure that they optimize their health in the best way possible. And I think the insights that we're going to get from all the data is going to be pretty interesting, because like there's just too much data for human beings to realistically look at. Like, we have to leverage some of these other ways to look at the data so that we can get the same kind of insights, you know?
Exactly. And there are simple, seemingly straightforward and simple breakthroughs coming out like today, like in the next few weeks, which are the general media does not fully appreciate the impact, but I know you will.
Can you tell me about that?
I'll tell you one. So like, I'm sure you know, in the healthcare, one of the big challenges in like healthcare system is like getting the data out of paper and notes and everything and into a structure where you can process it. And everybody hates these, you know, I go to my doctor's office and they're just, you know, have to spend half the time looking at the computer typing into an EHR instead of talking to patients. Doctors hate it. Patients hate it. The only people that like it is the people who are trying to do billing, right? So like that whole thing is a disaster. But OpenAI has last week released a computer vision component to ChatGPT where you can take a picture of something and convert it to data. So I was contacted by a big bank that said, "Hey, we want to do analytics on our loan applications." And like, I know about this problem. One of the big problems is that everybody sends in loan applications, and they have their, you know, chicken scratch filled out. And how do you convert that into data that can be used by a computer? So I took a loan application and I filled it out, which is fill out my chicken scratch handwriting. I pick a picture of my phone, and I said, turn this into JSON format, which is a type of data format where you can take like text document, return the structure and information in the form, and in a way, the computer did it. And I sat there and watched on my phone take everything I just written out and convert it into data format that we can use. So like that's not the future. That's now on the phone, and OpenAI is going to make that available for their API in early November. And so every company that has data sitting around on paper is now going to have a solution to convert that into an electronic format without, you know, all of these expensive systems, like immediately. And that's a small incremental change, but the impacts of that, I mean, imagine
oh my God, that's going to be huge. That's going to be huge. Like all these like forms that we have to fill out, you know, like the human beings were not meant to write forms. Like that's not an enjoyable process for anybody. I've not met one person in my life that enjoys filling out forms.
No.
But honestly, like I think that there's so much pushback to AI in general. Yeah. And when even learned people who I meet on a regular basis have this hesitance to artificial intelligence because they fear about the loss of control, that it's an existential threat. Yeah. What is some of the arguments that you would push back on with those people so that they get the same kind of optimism that you have?
Yeah, well, I guess the first thing I would say is like they're correct for being vigilant and concerned, right? Because like we are a human technology society. We have been for thousands of years, and every time there's an innovation that comes along, there are winners and losers. But generally speaking, tech society moves in the right direction. When the printing press came out, it caused wars, right? But there's not many people are sitting around going, you know, we should have never come out with a printing press. It's just how it happens. So we all make the same mistakes whenever there's new technology. And that is we look at the world where we are and we think about introducing technology to that world and take a linear approach of how the world will change with that technology. But that never happens. The world completely changes when the technology arrives. And so there's a lot of understandable fear from smart people who are making this leap who are looking at today, and I'll give you one that your guests will be probably familiar with, is this idea of this disinformation and misinformation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're all concerned about what's happening with deep fakes, with social media, and this fire hose of craziness that we see from whatever your political bend is. We see it happening on all sides. When you imagine taking AI and taking the bad actors and giving them this weapon, it can supercharge the internet to the point where I'm going to log in and see a fire hose of Dogecoin scams and QAnon, like all everywhere, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But what they're not considering is the point that you raised, which is the ability to process this data with AI. And a major challenge with disinformation is that the bad actors are flooding the zone, to use Steve Bannon's quote. It's
Absolutely.
like, I'm going to just give you so much that you can't manage it and you don't know what's true or not.
Yeah.
Well, and somebody goes on Joe Rogan, I'll just pick on, Robert Kennedy Jr. as a person who's incredibly persuasive and has, some, ideas that I agree with and some ideas which I find highly skeptical, right? But if the person goes on Joe Rogan and they're persuasive and starts spinning out information, there's no way for Joe Rogan or anybody to fact check that in real time. And by the time anybody does, it's out there and everybody's on to the next thing, right? And we know that the truth does not survive in a free marketplace, right? The truthful, clearly the hypothesis fails, but you can imagine AI can do this and can sit there in real time and sift through these things and say, Joe, maybe you should ask that person what evidence they have for this claim. And suddenly it allows us to filter so that we're not sifting through a fire hose of InfoWars from our relatives at Thanksgiving.
I think that's the underlying basis for all of this, is that the world has become so complicated that it's tough to process all the data, and we need help.
We need help. Yeah.
Human beings are imperfect creatures, and I think that we just need to leverage these technologies to expand their capabilities. And that's why I have an optimistic view, because anytime we've tried to expand our capabilities, yes, there's been bad things that have happened, but just like Martin Luther King used to say, the arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice.
Exactly.
I think it bends towards progress. I think
it clearly does.
We live in the best age of human beings ever. Like, to be a king in the 1200, in the 12th century, versus now, as like a lay person, I would choose being a lay person now over being a king. And you would be a fool not to, right?
Yeah.
And the idea of AI is just another adjunct to how we're going to progress as a species. So
on that, cool. I think you'll appreciate this one. But like, whenever I hear people long for the good old days, pre the 20th century, I just have 3 words for them that end that conversation: surgery without anesthesia. Like that ends no matter who you are. Like, you think about that.
Right. Yeah. Or just complication rates, right?
Exactly.
Thankfully, I tell people now, when I'm talking to people, this has a 99% success rate. And there's certain surgeries that have maybe less than that, an 87% success rate. It's oh my God, this is not a surgery that you want to get into, to convince. But then back in the day, it was 50% or less for a lot of these things. There's heroic actions. And now we're so focused on these few percentage points.
Yes.
Totally different society. So I was wondering, if somebody was young and they wanted to get into artificial intelligence, they say it's a buzzword. You started at Stanford. What would you say to a young person that was interested in getting into this field, so that they could kind of be at the ground level for this explosion of growth?
Same advice I give to CTOs who want to get their next job as the head of AI, or engineers or product, everyone. And that is just start doing it. It's start learning how to build things, start using ChatGPT, start using the tools. It's shockingly, there's so many people who are paralyzed by indecision. And what I've learned in the past 30 years of technology is the expert is the person who's not afraid to try. So take action, join a team, and you don't talk, don't think, don't worry, don't obsess over the articles that talk about, there's a lot of valuable topics like AI fairness and that are very world considering. But if you want to be a part of this, act, do. Try writing an application that leverages GPT-4. You'll find out that it's actually not that hard. It just takes some determination. You don't have to learn like all the programming stuff you had to learn years ago. The technology allows you to give it general instructions. So that's my advice for anybody. Just start doing, start building, start acting, start trying to solve problems. Upload a spreadsheet to ChatGPT. See what it does. Take a picture of a form on your desk and say, tell me what this means. And then start writing about it, talking about it, sharing an offer to help other people. Just start doing.
So is programming more accessible now because of this? Like, is it more, I feel like for me as somebody who's not in the programming world, it's very daunting and intimidating. And people are talking about artificial intelligence, but is it accessible to somebody that doesn't have a programming background?
It's continuously gotten more and more accessible throughout my entire career. Like it gets easier, the tools get better. When I first started programming, I started programming when I was 14 years old on the Commodore 64 when I was a kid, and it was very painful to do anything. It's getting easier and easier and easier. And like, what is a programmer, not a programmer? That line is getting blurry and blurrier. I mean, having said that, I don't want to give people there's an impression there like, wow, since AI can do some programming, it's getting easier. We won't need programmers anymore. And what I would tell people is that actually the opposite is true. We're going to need more programmers, right? And there'll be people that we need for like lower level complex stuff you need a PhD for, and things where you just need like creativity and good problem solving and good communication skills. But it's like, leveraging these tools to do things that's going to be the universal skill set.
Let's talk about a few of the end product technologies that I'm most excited about.
Okay.
Full self-driving. How far away are we from that? Is that something that you think is going to be realistic? And I think more importantly is that how do you think that the people that are making this technology are going to handle all of like the negative concerns that people have, like with the ethical considerations and everything like that?
So this is not an area of my expertise, because I will share. So I'm not working with an automotive company. I will share to you what I've learned just from my own education now. And that is, on the self-driving car in 2017, I bet my wife we would have self-driving cars driving around my hometown of Savannah by 2021. And the bet was, the loser had to keep scooping the kitty litter for the next decade. So
are you in Savannah, Georgia?
Savannah, Georgia. Yeah, that's home.
I was married there.
Oh, really? Oh, really? Yeah. Where?
Yeah, at the Telfair Museum of Art. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, we'll have to follow up afterwards because we're donors and very active in that. So and board members. So happy to. Yeah, we'll have to follow this on.
Sorry. Anyway.
We're great supporters of Telfair, and public service amount. If you come to Savannah, please visit the Telfair Museum.
Yeah, I love Savannah. Anyway,
all right. So now we're gonna have a chance to meet face to face either the next time I'm in Boston or when you're in Savannah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Self-driving cars. The breakthrough that I have seen recently is so anyway. I lost the bet about self-driving cars, but I think now they're going to happen quickly. The breakthrough that's come out recently is companies are realizing they can use AI to generate the training data to train the cars. So one of the challenges of self-driving cars, there's so many edge cases. There's the kid with the balloon versus the ball, the kid that runs and stops. And it's also just interacting with bad drivers, right? So it's like the other people. But companies have now realized they can identify these edge cases and generate tons of data automatically using generative AI that they can use and train the models. And this is within the last couple of weeks, and Tesla and others are investing massively in this. And this is going to allow us to bring the technology on much, much quicker, because before that, like, there's only so much data of driving around Pittsburgh streets in the snow, down a hill, at a stop sign when it's icy. Like, it's too much information. that is what's coming. So I suspect this technology is going to come quickly. And plus, one of the reasons that, and I've thought every incentive is driving this thing forward. Consumers want it. It's going to make us a lot safer, and the industry wants it. There's no faction aligned against it. In fact, it was shocking to me that, even when they said Tesla self-driving car made a mistake due to some operator and somebody died, that we kept going. Like, it didn't shut everything down like you would have expected. And it's every incentive. And as you know, like, most problems in the world can be solved when you get infinite resources and incentives driving behind it. Like, there's not too many problems. Cure for cancer might be one of them, but when you align every incentive possible, we're going to get there. So that's why I'm optimistic.
So another one that I'm really excited about is AI tutoring, which you kind of highlighted a little bit, is that, you invest a little bit in somebody's education at the kindergarten or kindergarten level, and there's lots of benefits down the road. And I think that human beings are very similar to plants in that you give them a algorithm of how to succeed, whether it's a little bit of fertilizer or a little bit of water, and they're going to flourish. And I think that the same thing happens with especially very, very young children. I have a 2-year-old myself, and I just see her taking in information at a level that is still remarkable to me every single day. How far away are we from that? And is there anything that you've come across that kind of gives you a lot of optimism about this? Because I do think it's going to be important.
I think we're there. We're there already. I mean, it's like, effectively, you see, I use now with a voice activated chat GPT, I find myself turning it on, and, it's like, hey, how long do I need to grill the steak on the grill for? And it'll just talk to me back and forth. So we're there already. And the biggest companies recognize that this is one of those, the biggest markets in the world, like getting people smarter with AI. So you have AWS putting $4 billion in Anthropic. OpenAI, I just saw in the New York Times yesterday, they're now going to raise their next round at a valuation of $80 billion.
I know. I saw that. That's crazy.
So OpenAI now is valued about the same as Boeing, right? So that's how fast this is happening. And Google, of course, is throwing everything in the kitchen sink at this. And so you have these companies are pouring everything in, and this is one of the most obvious ones. And it's going to be general purpose, like help kids learn smarter in any language, regardless of background. Like, they're all in. So that will be free, general purpose, ubiquitous everywhere. So that one is, I'm beyond optimistic. I would bet everything that we're going to have that. We're talking months, not years. That's coming.
Yeah, I was speaking with one of the policymakers for science education a few weeks ago on another podcast, and she was really highlighting how the idea of talking and interacting is such like a base human instinct. Like, that's how we're supposed to learn. It's active learning, right? And active learning is so much more powerful than passive learning and just like watching a screen. And so much of our last decade has been passive learning for young children. Like, the transition to active learning, she thinks is going to be exponential growth for humanity. Because, like, honestly, like, I remember conversations more than just something that I've watched on television. And I think that it's the same for kids. Before we even had writing, that's how we were learning. And so I think that's something that will be really powerful. The idea of like talking to your phone and talking to Alexa and all of these different devices, I think that has been a great breakthrough. But now with the addition of artificial intelligence, being able to give them any sort of information that they want to, that's going to be huge. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And also, for me, I do most of my writing because I'm always writing, scripts for YouTube, blogs, proposals. Like, I'm writing all the time. I now use the AI to write. So typically what I will do is I'll open up, my phone, and I'll start dictating to ChatGPT and say, hey, I'm about to write a blog post on this. And I'll dictate what I say, and I give it instructions. After I give you a chunk, you're going to go back and summarize and edit it. And it's a way for me to just get a lot of ideas out there quickly without physically typing. So it's not I'm not getting any dumber. I'm just using
Mm-hmm.
a tool instead of banging away on the keyboard. I'm telling it to like, okay, organize my thinking. And then I have to go back and edit and clean it up and everything because it's still not that smart. But that's how I work every day. I start almost every, and once you get into the workflow of like, I can talk instead of sitting down and staring at a blank piece of paper. Oh my gosh, is it easier?
Yeah, yeah, that's something that I really need to incorporate in my own life. Academic writing, which is the main focus of my writing,
Yep.
is so difficult. It's like,
Yes.
I dread it every single time somebody asks me to write a research paper or something like that, and I really hope that that's something that could permeate that field. So we talked about self-driving. We talked about tutoring, which I think is going to be a big deal for us also. What are some technologies that I might be missing that you're excited about?
The biggest one in terms of an impact that may not be as evident to a lay audience, but I think will be clear when they think about it, is the ability of these large language models to access data in databases. So one of the major reasons why you have to sit, you're in the airport and I've got to sift through. I want to figure out where my flight. If I open up an app in the airport, it's like almost a United app. There's only two things I want: what gate am I going to, and is it on time? Like, but I got to log in and click on this and click on this and click on this and go through these 9 screens or whatever to get to these freaking 2 easy questions. And at some point, I was like, all right, I'll go look at the board. Like, I don't want to deal with this freaking thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that is because it's not that the people making these apps are stupid or want to make us annoy us. It's actually getting data out of databases is a hard problem. And you have to use a programming language called structured query language, or SQL, to figure out how do I get data from different places? Because to be able to do this at scale, the data has to be organized in databases.
Mm-hmm.
That's not easy. It's one of the biggest challenge of any kind of programming is how do I get the data out in the right fashion I want. Large language models can now generate SQL from natural language queries. And so I can say to my phone, which gate do I need to go to? And it can take what I'm saying, translate that into a query for a database, go get the data and come back, reason across it and give me an answer. That is the most generic, exciting technology because it means it's going to change the interface and allow things. It's not just about having a chat interface, but it's how we can access technology without going through the painful dashboards and applications like we do now. That's going to be one of the biggest change. That's going to impact everything.
That's awesome. Yeah, so much of information is stored in databases. I think that people don't realize that,
Yes.
they just see the end product. And I mean, all of the data that I have to sift through to write a scientific article or something like that, it's all databases.
It's all databases. How do you get it out? Well, it's just
Right.
it's not easy for people to do that. So that's a major challenge. So it's like why is it so slow to get find out my flight is? Well, because United is processing millions of customers and they have a massive database, and to find your flight at your time, they've got to that's a difficult problem, but it's one that language models could do before you ask the question.
That's cool. Honestly, I feel like I could talk to you for another hour, but
Yes.
We are getting towards the end of our time. And I do always end with 3 questions that I really love to ask my guests. The first one is something personal to me. I always want to know where you gain your inspiration from. For me, it's science fiction. Like when I look at the ideas of the future that are promoted by utopian science fiction like Star Trek, it's something that I look forward to. I can't wait until we have robot butlers that I don't have to do my own laundry or, something. I feel like I'm making myself out to be super lazy, but it's actually, I think that the human experience should be something that's devoted to something other than tedious work.
Yep.
And I think that a lot of the visions of the future that you gave through artificial intelligence, hopefully we'll be able to remove that from our experience. But what do you gain inspiration from? Like any content out there that really drives your day-to-day?
So at the risk of flattering my host here, it's podcasts. Honestly, that's what I find is like, I truly, that is where, because it's just so practical for me to have this thing and put my AirPods in my ear when I'm walking the dog or doing dishes or folding laundry. And so I always have a podcast on. I mean, I enjoy audiobooks and learning, but generally speaking, I find there's a select podcast out there that I listen to and I find inspiration. It's usually ones where they challenge, where the host is very deliberate about how they think and they challenge, thinking and thinking critically. That's usually where I get most of my inspiration.
What are the podcasts that you listen to, if you don't mind me asking?
All right. So I think so I would say Jordan Harbinger is a great one. Sam Harris is another one. What are some other good ones that I follow? The 538 Politics podcast, although since Nate Silver's left, it's probably not as much as my go-to. But what I really enjoy about them is how critically they think about data and how they carefully they analyze. That's a great one. Peter Attia's health podcast is my one of my go-tos, along with his amazing book Outlive, and then Huberman podcast. I would say those are kind of my go-to ones if I have to pick them on my phone. And then there's some Philadelphia sports ones that I will go to as well when I really wanted to turn off the brain. So some Phillies. So
what did you think about Outlive? Because I just finished it.
It was so that we get this will have to be a second podcast. So my other interest is longevity and curing aging, and I've been a board member of the SENS Foundation for a couple decades. So
cool.
His was the best book I've ever read that marries interventions that you can do as a person and modern medicine, right? And I've not found anything, and it does it in a way that's evidence-based. I mean, one of the challenges that I've had with things I always struggle with is to find the balance between, the non-pharmaceutical interventions you can do as a person, don't smoke, exercise, wear your seatbelt. And there's a couple out there, but like nutrition, hot and cold therapy, there's all this stuff out there for which the evidence is not completely clear, and trying to figure out how do I prioritize,
right?
And, where do statins come in? Where does blood pressure? Where does colonoscopies? He captures all this and helps you figure out these are the things that are going to kill you. Focus on that. And that was very valuable for me because it's easy, even somebody who studies this stuff all the time and works with the researchers, I get lost in the morass of thinking about, sauna therapy and not putting it on that same level as getting a freaking colonoscopy, which if you actually stay back and look at the evidence, these things is very clear where you need to be spending your time. That's what I loved about it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think he's very practical. Like I had Aubrey de Grey on, who I'm sure that is one of like the originators of the whole longevity movement, and he's very much like 15, 20 years down the road talking about some of the societal implications and things like that. Some of the technologies that will not produce anything right now, but may be the answer, like Yamanaka factors and things like that. But he's giving a prescription for somebody today, how they can live longer. And so I really appreciate that. Also, he's a physician, which I also really appreciate. Okay. So second question, where would you hope that artificial intelligence would go so that it has the most benefit for humanity? That's a very general question, but it's something like I want people to know that this is a huge benefit. And we've talked a little bit about just kind of like the granular, like I won't have to look at my assistant anymore, my flight tracker anymore. But where do you think it's going to have like the biggest benefit?
When we have models that have ChatGPT's performance that fit on your phone, that's going to be that. When that happens, that's going to unleash a wave that we don't even know how to think about yet. And that's people are actively working on that now. And week by week, they get better and better and better. So when you can have a model that's like 7 billion parameters that has GPT-4's capabilities, the accessibility, speed, and what you could do with it is going to unleash creativity. Because right now, to do any practical thing, you actually have to send data to a server somewhere where these models are running and get a return. And it just introduces a lot of practical challenges for innovation. When we get powerful models on our phone, look out.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I never really thought about the difference between having something handheld versus like, relying on a server, because that's how self-driving is right now, correct? Like it goes to, or is it located in a car? Do you know?
I don't know. I think most of it is on board the vehicle.
Okay.
But I think in a car, in a car is an expensive device where you can have customized hardware trained specially for these things, and you could get downloads. So I'm assuming that's what happens when my Tesla gets a software download. I don't believe they're sending any data back, but it's possible I'm wrong about that.
Yeah. Last thing that I wanted to ask you, because I feel like we didn't really touch about Prolego really at all, which is cool because I love hearing experts and just picking their brain. I think that you're a thought leader in this space, and I really appreciate just talking about some other stuff. But I do want to ask, like, where do you see Prolego in 5-10 years? Where do you hope that the business applications of AI go in 5-10 years or so?
I think we are going to be driving the change in how software is built in big enterprises. So the overwhelming majority of applications built at banks and insurance companies and any company, they have a lot of software they've custom built for their operations. That's all going to be rewritten using these generative models. And we're already starting to do some of that. And so as a company thinks about, I have this legacy system that runs my operations, I'm going to have to replace with something else. They're going to want to use generative AI to do that. And that's where we have our expertise, because we do a combination of strategy, product planning, and the actual engineering. So that's where we make our biggest impact, is helping companies make this transition.
That's awesome, man. I really want more companies to start using artificial intelligence, because I think that it makes more value for the employees that are doing a lot of this mundane work. So all the best to you. Good luck with everything. And it was really, really interesting to talk to you. I feel like we could talk another hour about longevity, Savannah, Georgia, all sorts of different things,
We'll save it for a future podcast, or maybe or a meal together in one of our respective cities.
Absolutely. So we have a live show in Boston where we actually have a recording studio and stuff.
Great.
So if you're ever in Boston, I would love to have you on again.
Let's do it.
To our listeners, thank you so much for joining us this week. If you want to check Kevin out, he's on all different sorts of social media, which we'll share with our posts. But more importantly, we'll see you in the future. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks a lot.
We appreciate you taking part in today's episode. Take this chance to reimagine a better future by joining a community of futurists who strive for a remarkable world. Be a part of this growing network and contribute to making the world a more positive place. Visit thefuturistsociety.net and subscribe to the show so you don't miss a drop of hopeful futurism.